Breaker Crunchers! Welcome to another exciting new episode of Couch Crunchers, where we are... I can't even think of a joke right now.
We're crispy, crunchy, briny, salty, sweet. Crunching those pickles all day long.
Man, I feel like it's juicy. We've all spoken to each other.
Who's talking? Could you hear that? No one could hear what you just said.
Oh, I just said I feel like it's been weeks since we've all spoken.
Dude, your audio is so weird. What happened to your mic?
All right.
So, this week was an amazing week. I had an amazing opportunity. We'll be sharing this video with you guys later, but I interviewed the legendary, the great, the amazing Rob Paulson, voice actor extraordinaire, voice of my childhood, and also probably my kid's childhood. He's Raphael from the original Ninja Turtle cartoon. He's Pinky from Pinky and the Brain. He's Yakko from Animaniacs. He's Mighty Max from Mighty Max. Rob Paulson, you all have heard his voice. You may not recognize him by sight, but we had a fantastic hour-long interview. We'll be posting that Thursday while Lance fine-tunes it a little bit and puts the shine, the silky shine that you're so used to on his forehead. He's going to put that on the interview.
Am I coming in loud and clear now?
Yeah, you sound great now.
I accidentally unplugged my mic.
Oops.
No, dude, when we had the opportunity to interview Rob Paulson, I was like over the moon, dude, because Animaniacs, Ninja Turtles, Pinky and the Brain, like all these things were like staples of my childhood. You know what I mean? Like they were just, I was fully entrenched in this. Animaniacs has to be one of the greatest animated shows ever created.
Coming back. It's so great. They're bringing it back.
Yeah. It's so original, and it's so like, it's just kind of like that counter to like Looney Tunes and all those other things. You know what I mean? Like it was always felt like in that same realm, but it was the counter, right? It was just different than anything else.
I mean, but Rob Paulson was in everything. He was in Goof Troop. He was in DuckTales. He was in Darkwing Duck. He was in The Tick. He was in, we already said Ninja Turtles, but Mighty Max. Mighty Max.
I didn't realize he was Mighty Max.
Dude, he was Mighty Max. That was one of my favorite shows. It was really dark.
I love that show.
It was really dark for a kid show. And then the last episode was kind of controversial because it just kind of rebooted the whole thing. And we talked about that. We talked about it a little bit, not a ton, but
so I brought up Mighty Max on this show before. We're talking about the Adventures of Mighty Max, right? Where he wears the red cap and he has the
red hat with an M on it, and he travels through time and space.
And it's awesome that you two are on the show, that you know what it is. But I remember I brought it up on the show one time, and people looked at me like I was a crazy person when I was talking about this cartoon.
I love that.
It was so good.
I think it's just our age group. Like we remember the show. Do you remember so they had Polly Pocket.
Yeah, they were based on little
Polly Pocket for boys.
They had Polly Pocket for girls, and they had Mighty Max for boys. They've brought the Polly Pockets back. Like they're a little larger now, but you can buy those new. But no Mighty Max, dude. And I want to introduce my kids to Mighty Max. Like,
dude, I loved it so much. It was
Tim Curry was the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And that came up. That's something we talked about. I don't want to spoil the joke from the show, but it was
no spoilers, man. The thing is debuting Thursday at noon.
We had such a great time. So
I'm jealous. Like I wanted to do this interview. I'm glad you did it. But I wanted to do this interview, but his timing was right around. Like I didn't want to flake on him if the baby came. Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, cause he's one of when I think of prolific voice actors, he's top of the list. And then Mark Hamill is like directly under him. Like those two, as far as voice acting is concerned, I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And Kevin Conroy, of course.
it's like my dad bedtime stories. That's number one.
Yeah.
My dad reading Dr. Seuss, Fox and Socks at the speed of light. Fox and Socks, David Sutton, Fox and Socks, and Fox and Socks. That was my dad, right? So he's top. And then right under him, Rob Paulson. And then next thing, Jim Cummings, who was the voice of Darkwing Duck, Winnie the Pooh, and just basically everybody. Everybody who Rob Paulson was. Jim Cummings.
Jim Cummings did. He did the genie in the second Aladdin.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was poor man's genie? I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
Jim Cummings can do any voice. That guy.
There was, but it wasn't the same. The Aladdin from
obviously it wasn't the same, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, Ron Paulson, I have to admit, I wasn't super duper familiar with like his name, but I'm very familiar with the voices he's done. And he was Raphael, right?
Raphael in the original, Donatello in the 2012 Nickelodeon CGI reboot.
Well, in the original, that's what I watched.
Hey, Kyle.
The originals, and I freaking loved those things. And Raphael was always my favorite. He was the Ninja Turtle that anytime we played, he was who I played as. So I just think that's really cool that you got to interview Raphael. I feel like I need to get better at my interviewing skills so I can start interviewing people like Raphael, because that's really cool, man. That's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And Pinky. I love how he started. This is not a spoiler. This is a tease. He starts the interview as Pinky voice, and it's wonderful.
Well, yeah, it was part of my intro. I called back to an old Pinky in the Brain. Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering? And
you know what, dude?
He picked up on it right away, and he ran with it. He's so funny.
If they ever do like a live action Pinky in the Brain, Kelsey Grammer as the brain right now.
Yeah.
I always thought, I was like, they based that thing off Frasier.
No, so the voice is based off Orson Welles, the old movie director.
But his head looks like Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer's head isn't that big, but
No.
I get what
Just
you
when
mean.
he does this.
It's also a mouse. So, but
Man, I love that show growing up. It was the same exact thing every episode, and I never got tired of the joke.
yeah.
What do you think we're gonna do today, Pinky? And then Pinky would say something stupid, and Brain's like, "No, we're gonna take over the world." Every single week. I loved it. So
it started out as a short on Animaniacs, and then it branched out into a full length
series,
its own show.
Yeah, I loved that,
dude. Around that time, I mean, cartoons just aren't the same nowadays. I mean, I remember back then you had Animaniacs and Pinky the Brain, but you remember Freakazoid?
Oh, no. Dude, he was on Freakazoid too. Rob Paulson was in Freakazoid. One of my favorite episodes of Freakazoid is they're sitting around a campfire telling scary stories, and they're like all obsessed with things turning to wood. And then finally, this one kid goes, "Forget all that stuff. What if they gave Sinbad another TV show?" And all the kids go screaming. They just run screaming into their cabins. And the big kid's like, or the little kid says to the big kid, "You don't believe that, do you? I mean, about Sinbad getting another TV show?" he's like, "Nah, don't worry about it. They got networks censors to keep stuff from that happening again."
That's awesome, man, dude. Freakazoid. Anytime there was like a problem, right, that he had to get to, like you'd have that, like Superman flying to wherever he was going, but it'd be him just running with his arms, in front of him, back and forth. Oh my gosh!
Man, I do remember this now. I didn't watch it as much as you guys. I don't remember a single episode, but I remember what you're talking about now.
Oh yeah, dude, Freakazoid. There was nothing better, and I think it only went for like 2 seasons, or it was real short.
It wasn't very long lived, but it had a lot of humor, like referential humor.
Yeah,
not even like contemporary references, but like stuff that was probably for people who were in their teens or 20s.
Yeah,
as far as references, but it was very funny.
They kind of had those segue type things like Family Guy does too. Like they were like off the wall segue type things, like where they'd show a little clip of
like intermissions, right?
Intermission type thing. Yeah.
Right in the
Yeah, which Family Guy like is married to practically, but yeah, man, those cartoons were just amazing. So I'm going to be watching it tomorrow because I am of course editing it. But it will be out Thursday, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on YouTube. So make sure to check it out. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his other interviews, but every single one is good for.
I mean, he hits a lot of the same points because he's kind of a man on a mission right now. But he did a TED Talk a couple years ago based off of his book, which is called Voice Lessons. So he hits a lot of the same notes in most of his interviews, and I tried to get him a little bit off of those notes, and I think it did a pretty good job. We talked about some unique stuff, but we did hit a lot of the highlights. We got him doing some voices for us and telling some pinky jokes. So he did the things that you were hoping for, but also he hit some notes that maybe you weren't expecting.
Well, you're good at interviewing, Sam, because you'll dive into stuff that they're not usually asked about, like your Eric Roberts interview where you started getting into to the Killers and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, genius, man. Yeah, have them talk about something that they don't get to talk about. I think that's great.
Yeah, we talked about Michigan and we talked about hockey. He talked about his love for Gordie Howe, who is known as Mr. Hockey. And, it was really fun. Got to see him kind of fanboy over Gordie Howe like I was fanboying over him.
Speaking of hockey, Coyotes won a playoff series.
All right.
Heck yeah, these three Arizona boys are happy. I know Matt was super happy about it too from Absolute Geek, but
he's been posting all the updates. I haven't had a chance to watch. I only know what's going on because of Matt. Yeah.
Well, it's the only sports. I mean, baseball is boring right now. Like, particularly when there's no fans in the stands,
and the Diamondbacks
are even more boring.
And the Diamondbacks are not doing very well.
Yeah, and they're not doing very well either. So when there's no fans in the stands, your team is not doing that great. Baseball just, as far as entertainment is concerned, just goes down a few notches. So,
yeah.
But no, I want to know, because I've been diving into some new shows and stuff that I'm kind of excited to talk about, but I want to know what you guys are watching. And I figure we go with Max first, since he's been away for some time. I'm sure he's had a chance to watch a lot of things. So take it away, Max. What are you watching? What do you want people to
think
fan over?
Very highly of me. No, that's not true. I honestly haven't been doing. I've had some free time because whoa. No. What's up?
Oh, you're about to get to it. Sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah, as you guys know, I had a kid. So
are you gonna show him off? Do we get to see him?
He's not in here anymore. Sorry.
When did that happen?
He was right when the show started. He was getting fussy, and my mic was on mute. So I took him out to my wife, turned my camera off, so you guys didn't see. Sorry. I introduced him a couple of weeks ago at the end of the episode, but
Max wanted to turn his camera off so we wouldn't see that he's wearing tighty whities.
So it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I had a cute little baby, and he's just wonderful and amazing. We've mentioned it on the show before, but my wife and I struggled with infertility for 7 years before getting pregnant. We fostered for a couple of years in order to hopefully start a family that way. Fostered 9 different kids, and all of them went back to their biological families. And that was difficult. It was a long journey, and we just got lucky. And he's our miracle baby. We didn't do anything like in vitro or anything like that. Just got pregnant, and now we've got this wonderful baby boy, and he's a treasure. But as you could expect, I haven't had as much personal time as I'm used to. Now that I have a kid, I haven't quite figured it out like Sam and Lance how to balance my personal hobbies again. Granted, I know your guys' kids are a little older. I think it gets a little bit easier when they get a little older. But yeah, so I've had some time though. I played a lot of Ghost of Tsushima. I know that's what I was doing last time I was on the podcast, but I've been really enjoying that video game. Taking my time. It's been really fun. The last 2 games I've played, Red Dead 2, before my Xbox broke, so I didn't even get to finish it because my Xbox broke. And then Ghost of Tsushima, I've been like savoring them rather than just blasting through the story, and that's been really fun to really just like explore the world, to do all these different side quests, take my time with it. I've probably put 30 hours into Ghost of Tsushima altogether, and I'm only in Act 2 of 3. So it's not a particularly long game if you just do the story, but I've really been able to take my time, and that's been really nice. And then another thing I've been doing, also video game related, is The Last of Us has a podcast. There's an official Last of Us podcast that came out a while ago.
I didn't know that.
It's a limited run. It's only like 10 episodes or something like that. But yeah, you should check it out. It's on any of the podcast feeds you guys would follow. It's called the official Last of Us podcast. So I've been listening to that.
Oh, that's original.
Yeah. Well, it's the official one, so I get why they named it that.
They couldn't have put more thought into it, like couch crunchers? No, just kidding.
I'm sure they're getting more listens than we are. Multi-million-dollar game is going to get more listens than us.
That's funny.
But yeah, that's been really good. They recap the whole first game. They'll do like an episode per act of the game, kind of a thing. And then they're going to start getting into the new game and talking about that and everything. So that's been cool. And then rewatching Scrubs. My wife and I we do it every summer. And right now we're in season 6 of our rewatch of Scrubs, and that's been nice. And then, of course, American Pickle. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. I guess that's quite a bit in the last couple weeks, but it's been fun having a new baby at home and trying to balance my time. My Xbox crapping out was really annoying right before the baby was born, and I still don't have an Xbox, and my heart weeps, but that's okay. Series X is coming out in a few months.
I thought you bought one.
I did, and it doesn't work. So I said, I'm just deciding to cut my losses, return it, get my money back, and move on.
That sucks, dude. So the one you bought doesn't work?
Yep, I bought a refurbished one because you can't find new ones anywhere.
They discontinued them.
Yeah, they've stopped manufacturing the Xbox One X. So you can't find them anywhere. So I found a refurbished one, purchased it. Walmart didn't ship it, so I had to call them. They sent a new one. It arrived. I turned it on, tried to freaking do the initial updates you have to do, and it wouldn't update the Xbox. And I did all the troubleshooting on Microsoft's website, even got a USB drive, as they tell you to do, put the update on the USB drive, put it into the Xbox like they say, wouldn't work still. And I'm like, screw this. I'm just going to take it back. I've got plenty of games on my PS4. I do have a gaming PC. It's not the best, but it's okay. So I'm just, for my gaming needs, I'll play my PS4, I'll play my PC, and when the Series X comes out, I'll have an Xbox again.
Well, I might be able to part with my Xbox to let you borrow it.
Well, that would be awesome, honestly, because I've really wanted to keep playing Red Dead too. I was like on the 6th chapter, which is the final chapter. I'm like, and then it died on me. I've played the game before, so it's not like I don't know how it ends, but I was really enjoying my replay, and then boom, it just craps out on me. And my other Xbox, my day one Xbox One, also hasn't been working. It'll do video, but it won't do audio. And so I'm just like, man, all my Xboxes within a month, my 2 Xboxes completely crapped out on me, and that's annoying. So.
Right before your baby's there, so you're gonna have like 6 weeks off of work and wanting to play video games and
I mean, I haven't had a ton of time, although last night was wonderful. Our baby has been crazy for how young he is. They're except for one night this week, he slept between 5 and 8 hours straight every night, which is crazy for such a new kid. I mean, he's 2 weeks old. And last night he decided to go to bed a little earlier than usual. And my wife will go to bed when he goes to bed. She needs more sleep than I do. I can survive off of less. It really doesn't bother me. And I'm sure that'll change in 10 years. But for now, I don't need a lot. So it was nice. He went to bed at like 8 o'clock, and Kelsey, my wife, was like, I'm just going to go to bed. And what I've been doing is when he goes to bed, I'll come, and that's when I'll game. And so I had like 4 straight hours to game last night because I didn't go to bed till midnight. It was glorious. It reminded me of the before kids days.
You're glorious. You're glorious, Max.
But generally, I'd rather spend time with my kid. But when he goes to bed and I've got some time to game, I'll game. It's been nice.
Sam, what about you? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the platform Twitch. It's a streaming platform generally for video gamers to stream themselves playing different games. Well, there was a new game that launched last week, and it was called Fall Guys.
Dude, I've heard so much about this. Please do tell.
It's like a cross between MXC, Wipeout, and baseball mascots. So you got these kind of like, doughy avatars who run around. They kind of look like potatoes, but you can dress them up in different like mascot uniforms. And they run through these obstacle courses, and if they make it in the top whatever number, then they advance to the next round. And so each round, it starts at 60 and it whittles down to like 6 or 7 or 8. And if you're the last man standing, then you win the game. And it's bright colors, it's really comical, and it's really fun to watch these people play. And the guy I was watching is Grand Pooh Bear. He was the streamer who was doing really well, and he was really entertaining to watch. I probably put in more hours than I should have watching this, but it was very fun. It looks like a kind of game that you would pick up to play just endlessly online.
Yeah.
It is. Let's see.
It's free
on
right
Steam.
now.
It's on Steam. Looks like it's $20 to play. It's on PS4 and Microsoft Windows. But it's just zany. It's fun. It's really easy to learn. The strats that people use for the various courses are pretty simple to understand. And it's good. It's good fun for a week or two, I'd say, at least.
Yeah. Well, right now, if you have PlayStation Plus, it's free. So I actually have the game. I haven't played it yet, but I downloaded it, and maybe I'll give it a try sometime. Because I've heard amazing things. It sounds like it's just silly fun.
It's really fun.
Kind of game.
It's like Wipeout, but there's so many people. So it's like in that respect, it's kind of like MXC.
Do you have PlayStation Plus, Lance?
What?
Do you have PlayStation Plus?
No, I don't pay for any of that stuff.
Oh, never mind. I was going to say download it and you and I can play together. But
maybe when the PlayStation 5 comes in, I'll probably get it. PlayStation Plus. We just had to repair both our vehicles this last week, and they're both broken again. So,
gosh,
bummer.
Yeah. So I think what had happened
Lance
is
has been watching his bank account dwindle down. Mm-hmm. That's what you've been watching.
Oof. Yeah. But that sounds awesome, man. Like how much is PlayStation Plus?
$60 a year, unless you can find a deal.
Oh, is there typically deals?
There are sometimes. I picked it up for $30. I think I've got 2 years right now because I bought a year, and then I saw like 2 weeks after I had paid my $60 that it was on sale for $30. So I've got 2 years right now.
Yeah, I kind of screwed myself. I bought, San Diego Comic-Con released a bunch of pops, and I got almost all of them, and like the Marvel and DC ones and stuff. And then my cars broke down. So yeah, I'm broke.
Speaking of pops, different kind of pops, Wild Bill's Soda released 4 or 5 new flavors.
Oh, different kind of pop.
Different kind of pops.
I thought they were going to have like a Wild Bill pop, and I was like, that's genius. They go to all the Comic-Cons. Why don't they have their own pop?
Different kind of pop. Soda, I mean. Yeah. Soda pop. Yeah. And for all of you viewers who like to go to conventions and you see those Wild Bill's keg stands where they have a half dozen or so flavors of root beer and soda, and you're probably jonesing for it right now because there's just so much sugar in those sodas.
Dude, that grape soda that they have, it's so good. And then they have a black cherry one.
Okay, so black cherry is one that they've always had in cans. So they had 4 flavors in cans. They had black cherry, orange cream soda, root beer, and diet root beer. You could have always gotten those. but they just added birch beer, sarsaparilla, ginger ale.
And birch beer is the one that you're like nerd over, right?
That's the one I love. They added a butterscotch, which is like the butter beer, the Harry Potter butter beer, and they added the grape to the lineup. So you can now buy those online and have them shipped to you if you're really missing it from the conventions.
Where do I get them? Where do you get them from?
WildBillsSoda.com. They're having a sale right now. Usually it's $32 or $36 for a 12-pack, which is kind of high price, but it's premium soda. And right now it's $30 for a 12-pack.
It's a deal.
I'm on there. I'm on their website right now.
Let's each go in on one.
I already went ahead and ordered a birch beer 12-pack. I know you guys love the grape. I don't know that the grape is available yet, but it's going to be soon. They also expanded their offerings to iced teas and lemonades, as well as barbecue sauces and hot sauces.
Yeah, this is what I'm most excited for, because since Max moved back to Arizona, now we can all go to cons together again, because he's been kind of MIA from those for the last couple of years with his move to Colorado. And Sam, Tyler, and I are all patrons of Wild Bill's. Like when we went down to Tucson, I swear while we were there in that 3 days, we each gained 20 pounds. Like just from the amount of soda.
Well, you guys gained 20. I only gained 15 because every third mug's supposed to be water. So you don't get dehydrated. You guys just went straight grape all day. You never slowed down.
I drank a lot of diet root beer. Like I went a whole day where I only drank the diet root beer because I could feel my teeth like falling out.
Do they have any other diet sodas? Because
no, diet root beer is the only one, but it's delicious, dude. It's the greatest thing.
As most people, well, I think you guys know, I know that you know, Lance, I'm diabetic, so even though I've been horrible lately and been having way too much sugar, I'm trying to be better. So if I'm going to get any, I got to get that diet root beer so I don't go into a diabetic coma.
I would think that you could probably try a couple of the other ones, but you're probably
I can try it. I'm not going to die if I have a soda.
You could like take a drop because the sugar to water ratio is like 1 to 1.
That's how they make it. Gallon of water, gallon of sugar.
I'm curious if they've got like their I'm on their website. I was trying to see if they have like a nutritional thing on here to tell you.
Oh no, they might get shut down by the health department.
Yeah,
they have to say that kind of stuff. Come on now.
Like pure cane sugar, pure cocaine sugar. It's
delicious.
It's so good though.
Yeah, and Max, what's cool is that don't buy the mug online, because when you get the mug at the con, it has the con's logo on the mug. So it's etched in. They're really premium mug, dude. They're awesome.
And if you're part of the event, in other words, if you're a presenter or staff, then you pay $5 for the full weekend to
unlimited
have
refills.
Unlimited refills.
So did you guys get that? Were we considered?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we bought. So Sam already had it.
We were panelists, so I only had to pay $5 for the whole weekend, and Max and Tyler and Corbin each bought a mug.
Lance, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Lance. I know Lance.
I forgot the other one. The vintage vanilla cream soda is also available. You can also get the cream soda.
But I had to buy the mug.
The mug, and yours all said Tucson Comic-Con. Mine was from Phoenix Fan Fusion. But they're so good, dude.
It sounds like what you need to do, Sam, is you need a host to get together, invite your Couch Crunchers buddies, and share a birch beer soda with all of us.
We still have not had a homecoming over at Sam's place. They're not homecoming, housewarming.
And you've been in there like 6 months now, haven't you?
Since October.
Yeah, a year.
Coming up on a year.
Coming up on a year.
Guys, it's almost October. This is nuts. Okay, I have a couple things. I'll go quick as far as things that I'm watching that I really want you guys to check out.
Okay, I gotta go. I'll be back when you're done.
The first of which is on HBO Max. It's HBO and HBO Max. The new Perry Mason reboot is freaking phenomenal. It's produced by Robert Downey Jr. and his wife, and it is one of the coolest like crime investigative shows I've ever seen. Dude, it is so good. It reminds me a lot of Sherlock, but it's more Americanized, and it's a bit grittier as well.
It also takes place in the 50s,
30s or 40s. Yeah, it's like
it's before he's a lawyer. He's not a lawyer yet.
Yeah, you watch him in that process.
He's a PI trying to become a lawyer.
Yeah, I want to say it's the 40s that they're 30s or 40s that they're in. I don't remember though. I don't know.
Yeah.
But dude, this is one show that like it comes out on Sundays, I believe. And it's one show that I'm like itching to watch, like when it comes out. And it's been a while since
they just finished the first season.
I'm pretty sure there's one more episode left.
But they're coming back for a second season.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I think they're getting a lot of HBO is in a unique situation right now because they just started the streaming service, so they got to fill it with content. So you're gonna see a lot of shows get the second season order that maybe wouldn't previously because they need content, right? And but I'm not saying that Perry Mason doesn't deserve the second season, but I'm not shocked that they're already like the season's not even greenlit the second season. So I looked up Perry Mason online and it brought me up the old 1966 one. So Perry Mason, I used to sit around with my grandpa and watch it. It was one of his favorite shows. He understood maybe half of what they were saying, but he was fully invested in the show, man. Like, because his first language is Spanish back, But the other show that I'm watching or that I just finished is Into the Dark from CW about this woman.
Gal.
She's blind. She's investigating the murder of her friend. It's absolutely fantastic. I would recommend that to everyone. And then if you are not watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Doom Patrol, you're a fool.
Oh yeah, I've been watching both of those, but I'm behind on both. Well, I'm not super on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think I'm on episode 9, and they've got 11 episodes out right now. And then Doom Patrol, I'm really behind. It's good, but it's not as good as season 1. Like,
oh, I love it.
Close.
No,
but
dude,
I'm only
the
on
last episode
4.
I saw might have been my favorite episode of the season.
Well,
of the series.
Maybe it gets better because episode 1 I thought was meh. Episode 2 I loved. Episode 3 was good. Episode 4 has been good. So like, but it's season 1. Every episode was just fire. It was all incredible.
Max makes me laugh every time I hear him verbalize the word meh.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I've been telling you this for years.
I don't think you've ever said that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. It's just funny. Like it's not something and now I notice it like when people like type it out MEH. I'm like, oh, that's Max.
I mean, it's a word.
Yeah. Not really. It's more of a sound.
I guess you're right. It's not. I don't think it's a dictionary word.
It's like,
and if it is,
sigh.
Yeah.
But if you're not watching Doom Patrol, so Sam, Doom Patrol's on HBO Max. So if you have a chance, I
started watching.
Oh, you have? The first season's bonkers. It's just weird. But this new season, this new season, like they introduce a bunch of other stuff, and it's I love it. My wife loves it, and she's not usually a fan of the superhero comic book shows.
I'm just struggling because there's not like a clearly defined villain this season.
Oh yes, there is.
Or at least,
there is.
I guess I haven't really gotten there yet, or I don't want to get into spoilers.
No, dude, you figure that out in the first episode.
What? His daughter is the villain?
Max.
We'll talk later.
Like
we're not going to spoil it. Yeah, we'll talk later. You find that out. Within the first episode of this season. So we'll talk more later.
Okay. All right.
But so that's what I'm watching. I would recommend everybody go check those out. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is one of their best seasons. in my opinion, and it's really going out with a bang. So
it's good, but I have such a big issue with it. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. keeps doing this thing where they split up Fitz and Simmons, and together those two are the best part of the show. And the last 3 seasons, they've separated them most of the season, and it sucks. Like, the show's good. The best moments in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the last 3 seasons have been between those two when they're together. And they're not together ever, hardly.
Yeah, and I think this season I'm more intrigued by Daisy and Sousa.
Yeah.
I've been liking that relationship. So
Sousa's awesome. I like the season. I'm not trying to badmouth it.
Max, I tried to segue like 5 minutes ago.
Sorry. You started talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh my gosh, I love you, dude.
All right, well, let's snap into these pickles.
American Pickle. I'm your host tonight, Pickleist Cage. So we all saw American Pickle. It's I think it's the first HBO Max original movie that they've come out with on the streaming service. And American Pickle is a fairly simple idea. It's based off a short film or a short story or something like that. And it's essentially Seth Rogan is a what is he? He's a Jewish trench digger from like the late 1800s or something like that, early 1900s. And he falls into a vat of pickle brine. And that whole scene was hilarious, by the way, and we'll get more into that. But he falls into a vat of pickle brine, wakes up 100 years in the future, and is introduced to his great-great-grandson, who is also played by Seth Rogan. And the laughs just continue from there. So, what's that?
Let's get the mechanics down. So, it's Grandpa Herschel. Then there's
Great-Grandpa Herschel.
Yeah, Great-Grandpa Herschel. And the Grandpa David. And then the dad's name is like Mark or something?
Mort.
And then the other Seth Rogen character is Ben. So Ben and Herschel, the
Green Bombs,
are played by Seth Rogen. They're separated by their 4th generation.
It's just interesting. Imagine hanging out with your great-grandpa, who you may or may not have even met, because great-grandpas are typically quite older than you. So I actually don't know a single one of my great-grandpas. Both of my great-grandpas were dead, or either shortly after I was born or already before I was born. So I can't even imagine it. It was intriguing. The idea behind the story was very intriguing.
But it was very well executed. Now I know when I floated the idea of watching this movie, Sam was on board, but Max had his reservations, right, Max?
Did I have super reservations?
Not super huge reservations, but the idea of Seth Rogen was not.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Seth Rogen fan.
Yeah,
I like him in some stuff, but not typically. He's kind of annoying. Like, he was your favorite part of Lion King. He was my least favorite part of Lion King.
Oh yeah, that whole movie is a dumpster fire. I don't know how you could have any favorite part of that movie, but okay.
I'm saying you like Seth Rogen. I didn't.
Yeah, because I thought. Well, I don't want to get into Lion King because
we don't need to.
We've beaten this with a dead horse 100 times.
With a dead horse, I love how you say
that. Yeah, I know. But so Seth Rogen, I do love Seth Rogen. He's one of my favorites. But I like actors that weren't supposed to be big famous movie actors and then become big famous movie actors. So that's kind of Seth Rogen does not fit the typical mold of an A-list celebrity.
Sure.
So I kind of gravitate towards people like that, like him and Jonah Hill and a lot of those actors from that group.
Is it because you're a chubby guy and they started out as chubby guys?
Well, I grew up with A-list actors looking like Brad Pitt and having six packs and, being heartthrobs and stuff. And so when you have a guy that has a less than desirable laugh, is chubby and it's chubby, he's nasally, but he's a fantastic writer. I mean, the movies he writes are just, I mean, that's his main skill is his ability to write, him and Evan Goldberg. But this movie, when I saw the trailer, I said, "Oh, this is gonna be weird." Like I was thinking it was like gonna be this unique kind of slapsticky type thing, like Sausage Party was. Like they took an idea and we're just gonna turn it on its head and have fun and everything like that. But I was surprised by this movie because it was really heartwarming. Like there was some parts in it that was really like spoke on the importance of family and the importance of valuing your heritage and keeping traditions alive and remembering where you came from. And I think that's what made me like this movie so much. Sam, what did you think about this movie?
So one of the things that I really like is when a movie doesn't get hung up on like mumbo jumbo. You know, how is it possible that a guy ends up in a vat of pickles and then survives for 100? Who cares? Honestly, who cares?
Dude, the way they did that was genius.
It's so funny, right?
Yeah,
he's sitting there in this press conference and everyone's like, how is that possible? And he just glosses over it. He's like, the scientists gave explanation and everyone was satisfied. And then all the reporters like, yes, that we're satisfied.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And
he doesn't even say it like that. The way he said it was fantastic. He goes, the science was sound. And then they move on. Like,
yeah, because it doesn't
gosh.
matter. Honestly, if you let the mumbo jumbo get in the way of the story, your story is just it's gonna drag. So they wisely just skipped over it, and just told this kind of funny, a little bit cringy at times, but in a funny way.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Herschel is a square peg in the round hole of today's society, and the whole idea is to contrast what has changed in the last 100 years to what from the last 100 years is still of value today, and what can the past learn from the future, and what can the future learn from the past. And so the narrative is kind of a little bit on the nose. I mean, it's very like obvious the kind of things that they're going for, and a lot of the jokes related to Donald Trump and Twitter and kind of getting canceled, you know, the whole idea of cancel culture, and it was a little bit on the nose, but it was still really funny. It wasn't preachy. It was just kind of poking fun, both at the traditional conservative way of doing things versus the new progressive way of doing things, and I really enjoyed it for the most part. And the messages that were kind of buried very shallow, I'd say they didn't try to hide what they were going for. They were very upfront about what the message was.
Yeah.
But it was a nice film. It's clearly based on a short story, a simple concept. What if your great-grandfather suddenly showed up and you realized you had a lot in common, but a lot that was different? And how would you coexist? And it was a really funny thing. It was a really fun film. You know, in a lot of my writings, I write some too, and the concept of time travel is basically when you think about going to the past to correct your one regret or a series of regrets. That actually is possible. All you have to do is teach your children, who are basically you for another generation, how to avoid the mistakes of your past.
Right.
And when you want to travel to the future and see what your future is going to be like, you go talk to your dad or you go talk to your grandpa, because they're the you of the future. And so you have to go see what challenges they faced and how they address them. And so you can actually time travel in today's life. You know, you don't have to have a DeLorean and a flux capacitor. You just have to have a phone and call your dad or talk to your kids, and you can time travel. And I thought that was basically what they were going for with this movie, and I really enjoyed that because it's a concept that I've been toying with for many months. So I did enjoy this film.
Max, what did you think?
Yeah, I liked the film too. I thought it was funny, witty. I did think that there were some things that were over the top, but like how quickly they turned from family, we love each other, to mortal enemies was a little absurd.
Well,
But have you never had a Thanksgiving dinner?
Not like that. Maybe
Dude,
that's why. My upbringing's always been we've all been pretty friendly. Even
Max doesn't get it, dude. Like he comes to my family gatherings. We're all Italian. We're South American. Like, you know, and the minute anybody raises their voice, like Max is like, holy crap, they're getting divorced.
No,
I'm like, no, this is how we typically talk to each other.
It's true that that's not how my family operates. Right. And that used to be the case because my best friend growing up, his family was the same. They weren't Italian, Argentine, or anything like that, but they would scream and yell at each other all the time, and that was not the upbringing I had. My mother is very calm. Yeah, my dad got mad at us on occasion, but it was not a yelling environment. Just that's not what I grew up in, which is great. But yeah, my best friend's family yelled at each other, and that made me really uncomfortable until I realized, no, that's normal. A lot of families.
Yeah, you're the abnormal one.
Yeah, it's normal. My wife is the same way. Her family wasn't like that either.
Yeah.
So anyway, maybe that's part of it. Because my family does have some vastly different political opinions. I mean, we've got some people on my family that are staunch right, and we've got it's literally like half. There's like, with my uncles and aunts, I would say us cousins are way more like politically diverse. But with my uncles and aunts, it's very much like they're staunch on the right, staunch on the left. There's no in between with these people, and somehow they don't get in yelling matches because they've learned to just shut up at family dinner about that kind of stuff. Don't talk about politics, which I think is very smart at family dinner. But yeah, maybe that's why, because that does not compute in my head, this idea of I love you, we're family, and then the next minute I'm pissed at you and I want you to die, kind of a thing. That doesn't make sense in my brain. Well, and so I struggled with that.
I think it made sense to me because yes, they're family, but they didn't know each other.
No.
Like the only thing that was telling them was family was some scientist. You know what I mean? Like,
I get why Ben was more mad than Herschel. That's the other issue I had. And again, it's a comedy, so I'm not like super upset about this. But why in the world is Ben being booked for this crime that he didn't do anything wrong? Like his great grandfather literally took his arm and punched a guy. Like, Ben did not commit a crime here. He took his great grandpa to his great grandmother's grave, and then his great grandfather got in a fight with people he thought were the Cossacks, which was hilarious.
Dude, it's a movie about a dude in a pickle vat. Like, you can't overanalyze.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. It's a comedy.
Max, at the same time, it's poking fun at things that actually happen today. I mean, it doesn't take much to ruin somebody's reputation.
It's true.
Like, all you have to do is dig up some old tweets of offensive things they said, and all of a sudden their reputation's in tatters.
No, it's true, and that's what really resonated with me in this movie.
And that's what they were poking fun at, right? Is the idea that anytime somebody posts something or does something that is slightly offensive or taboo, they're roasted or they're canceled. So,
and there's
I loved how they phrased Twitter. Oh yeah. Twitter is this place where you can go online and just everyone has civil, wonderful conversations about everything. No, that is the opposite of what Twitter is. I really see anyone happy on Twitter.
He was trying to set him up, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, which was clever and hilarious. Yeah. I thought the hijinks they got into after their fight were funny. I just thought they were absurd. Again, I understand it's a comedy, so it's fine, but I did have a little trouble in my brain because that's not believable to me at all. I had a little trouble with that, but I still really enjoyed the movie, and I loved the message about the cancel culture and all of that. And I loved at the end of the movie when Herschel basically says, so I'm never going to, something to the effect of, I'm never going to be successful now because of what I said. This can't be undone. Which is how it feels sometimes nowadays. Like that is how sometimes that cancel culture feels. But I liked how Ben said, no, it's not. We can fix this. And I liked that message of hope in today's digital world.
I think that was put in there intentionally because I do think lives are ruined.
They are
right now.
Absolutely.
Because of that, because there is no forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
So you have people, I mean, they're drumming up tweets or posting or something from people, stuff that was said 10, 15 years ago, you know, despite, for instance, Ryan Reynolds right now is under a lot of heat because he and his wife got married in at a plantation, a former plantation. It was not a plantation. Like, it did not have slaves while they were there. And Ryan Reynolds has done amazing things for just his community, for random people. Like, he's a good guy that does a lot of charitable work. But never mind that. He got married at a plantation and he needs to be canceled, right? So it's just a shame, you know, like.
Well, James Gunn, same thing happened to him. It's happening all over the place. And it's sad.
Yeah. Well, the problem with James Gunn, though, is that the person that pointed him out was a far right radical about the stuff he was tweeting. And James Gunn, I wanted him hired back, but it was a little hypocritical because people forgave him because of who outed him. And I've always had an issue with that.
Yeah, well, we don't have to get too political. The point of the movie is that you have a guy who's 100 years older than everybody else. He's basically Captain America age. Yeah. And he's being held to new standards that he didn't know existed or that never existed in his day and age. And the reason why that's so absurd is because they're under different pressures, right? So he's still under the impression that the Cossacks are an imminent threat to his life. And that's not the case anymore, right? And so his opinions are based on existential threats that no longer exist. Mm-hmm. And so when we go back, even if you go back 10, 15 years, we were under different threats, different existential threats, and we had different attitudes about those threats. And it's kind of the same idea as time goes on, our attitudes change because the threats to our existence change. And the things that you have to pay attention to in order to survive change.
Right.
And it's not fair. It's really not even, it's like apples and oranges. You're comparing 100 years ago, 20 years ago, to today. It's totally different. I mean, we're looking at 20 years ago, we were pre 9/11 and we thought things could never get any better than they were. Like it was, the world was flying high. And then 9/11 happened and things changed real quick. Mm-hmm. And our attitudes changed. They changed overnight. And they do that. They've been doing that a lot in the year 2020. Our attitudes have changed very quickly and they've gone through big cycles real quick. But that was one of the things that was highlighted in this movie is like, you can't compare it's basically the same DNA, right? Herschel Greenbaum and Ben Greenbaum are the same DNA. They're the same person. But what a difference 100 years makes, right? Herschel was a fighter. He was out to survive, and Ben was barely hanging on to his life, despite the fact that he had all the comforts of modern day.
Yeah, well, and he's living in this world where he's developing an application designed to help you choose which company is more ethical. Whereas Herschel grew up in a world where that didn't matter one lick. He just wanted to get food on the table for the next meal. Just so vastly different mentalities. Like it also goes to show something good. I mean, there's still a lot of people that are impoverished and that's bad. I'm not trying to diminish that. But you look at someone in poverty now compared to in poverty 100 years earlier, very big difference between what those two people go through. And that was something that I found fascinating, how Herschel was so excited to have seltzer water when you have Ben, who was clearly like lower middle class. I wouldn't say he was in poverty, but he was not wealthy by any means. Had a seltzer water creator, like, and that was so exciting to Herschel. Like these, wow, you must be wealthy and successful. You can have seltzer water whenever you want. When that's not a big deal today at all. And I thought that was fascinating. There were a lot of really, really good things about this movie, and some of the hiccups I mentioned aren't really going to impact my score too much. They were just things I noticed. But overall, I loved it. And I loved the scene where you've got this guy, again, who's from 100 years earlier. And he's on that interview, and they keep asking him what he thinks about this. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. They're like taking it as some deep saying, when really he's like, I have no idea what words you just said to me. None of what you're saying is computing in my brain. And that, I just thought that was hilarious, and how people will read into things when really someone's saying something so simple, and we don't want to see that. Do you like eggs? I don't care for them. They're saying they don't like eggs, but someone might read into that and say they're saying something else.
They're a chicken hater.
You don't like the farming industry is what you're really saying, and so we should all, you know what I mean? Like, it's the way people can take your words and flip them, and I thought that was hilariously done.
Yeah, I loved every second of this movie. I mean, when I was excited about it from the moment I saw the trailer. I mean, it's very rare that I see a trailer and I have to pull my wife in the room and rewatch the trailer to show her what I had just seen. And that's how it was, because when I saw the trailer, I'm like, this is so ridiculous. Like, and only Seth Rogan would do this, right? Like, make a movie about a dude who gets locked in a vat of pickle brine. Like,
did he get the double bill though, because he played two characters?
Well, he wrote it, he produced it, so I don't know.
Himself.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, HBO Max basically paid for the rights of the movie.
Yeah,
it's from my understanding, but it's cool too. That brings me up to another point. Is look at what streaming networks have done for the movie industry. This is a movie that 15 years ago could not have been made, right? Or it would have been some cheap thing, and they would have hired big name actors, and there would have been fart.
It'd be like an indie release, a limited release movie.
Yeah, a couple weeks in the theaters, no one would have really watched it.
But it wouldn't have gotten like really a budget or like from HBO. You know what I mean? Like the streaming landscape has allowed some truly awesome movies to be made that would never seen the light of day potentially. And Seth Rogan actually spoke about that. He was saying, my movie wouldn't have been able to be made 15 years ago. I remember when we pitched the idea of Pineapple Express 2, a movie that people have been clamoring for. And Sony's like, nah, not for us. But now with streaming service, I mean, it's potential we could get that movie. The Disaster Artist was passed by numerous people. And I think, did Amazon finance that movie?
Yeah. I thought it went to theaters. Oh, it was Amazon?
It did, but it was financed. It was produced by Amazon, distributed by Amazon.
Yeah. So, like you get these streaming networks into, for instance, Apple TV, they did a Beastie Boys movie that Spike Jonze directed and stuff like that. That would never been made. You have, trying to think, like every TV show, the Umbrella Academy is an interesting idea. I mean, there's Talking Monkeys and stuff like that. Might have, it just opens the door for as an art form for so many new things to be put in front of us, and I'm excited for what the future can do. And American Pickle proves that, like, just how fortunate we are to be able to consume this much art. Because yes, American Pickle is a comedy, but there's still an amount of art that was put into that movie, like as far as the script writing and everything like that. Like, it's still an art form, and
absolutely. I mean, even something as simple as the way they shot the first like 10-15 minutes until he goes into the pickle vat, like they shot that more as like an old film style, like filter on it, and it was in a 3 or 4 by 3 format, aspect ratio. Thank you. Even that kind of stuff has an artistic value to it. And I noticed that right from the beginning. And I loved that. I thought that really pulled me in to the story. I'm like, oh, cool. I know it's not going to stay like this the whole movie, but this is really interesting. So no, I totally agree. A comedy is still art for sure. There's a message to the movie. And even if there wasn't like a deep message, it's still art, and art is very subjective.
Well, I mean, and you have different types of comedy too. Like, I mean, you have Grown Ups too, right? Or Grown Ups or whatever. That's just the comedy. But this one tries to do something unique and a kind of a different idea and kind of put a spin on the whole time travel thing, as Sam was saying. And it puts those little moments of art, because I thought Seth Rogen in the beginning of the movie did a wonderful job with his accent, speaking the foreign language. Like, these are things that I did not think this guy could do. Right. Like, and it impressed me. I mean, did you guys stick around in the mid-credit? Did you guys see the mid-credit scene?
The Barbara Streisand thing?
Barbara Streisand.
Oh, dude. I was laughing uncontrollably. Yeah, he said, what does he say? He goes, this Barbara Streisand, is she married? And he says, yeah. And he goes, someday, Barbara Streisand, someday. Oh my gosh, I laughed so hard. But it's just really quick one-liners and stuff like that but they fit. They weren't out of place like a Grown Ups or one of those kind of movies, They fit, and they fit into the theme of the story, which I loved every second of it. But
absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the themes of connecting to your past. I feel like there's kind of a hunger for a lot of people to really connect with their past or with their ancestors, where they came from. And I feel like that comes in large part from the fact that a lot of who we are is determined by your genetics. And it's really fascinating to see what kind of people you came from, because you end up seeing the same struggles that they had, you have. And you want to know how they dealt with it, because you're going to have to deal with it eventually too. And so it was really fun to watch Herschel kind of take over the father role for Ben and say, look, this is how we deal with a problem. We fight it head on. We take our fists and we put them in the faces of the people who stand in our way. And he goes on this quest with the Pickles to just raise the money to restore the graveyard where his wife is buried.
Well, and prove him stupid. I love how he said that over and over again. I will prove you stupid.
He said a lot of things funny. I will do violence to you.
It was funny, right? It was really funny. But the idea that this really small goal, it really was a small goal, meant the world to him, and he was willing to do whatever it took. And the Pickles were just kind of the means to that end. And then he realizes that it's not enough to focus on the people of his own time. He also has to now focus the same energy he put towards restoring that graveyard or that gravesite to his own descendant, and making sure that he's set up in a way that will bring the success and will honor the people who he loved by keeping the promise that he made 100 years ago. So it was such a great. It's a simple concept, and it was well executed. It was also humorous. They didn't get bogged down in the mumbo jumbo, and I thought the themes were just really important. And I, as a dad, as a son, as a grandson, the things that I think about all the time, and this movie did really resonate with me.
Yeah. And you brought up earlier that science line. I mean, I thought that was genius, because you don't want to get too hung up on the details, like you said over and over again. I mean, he falls into that vat and immediately hitting the brine or whatever, nobody turns around. Just gigantic splash happens between them. Nobody turns around. The lid is put on immediately. 100 years passes. Then this drone flies in, barely taps the lid, and it kind of falls off. But you're sitting there and you're like, oh yeah, it's far-fetched. That's the theme they're going for. But I'm glad that they're not spending a whole lot of time in this. Right?
Yeah,
like,
don't get bogged down with it. Yeah. It's
yeah,
just
they do it over and over again, and they I mean, just subtle things,
it's like a children's story.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way of putting it. It was like a children's story. This was a movie that I could have shown my 9-year-old that she would fully understand. And it did remind me of those old 90s, I mean, a bit more adult, but those old 90s, like Three Ninjas Kick Back and like stuff like that, like that has just those very quick segments to get to the next thing, to get to the bulk of it, right? They don't delve too deep into stuff. And it kind of reminded me of that. And I think it added to I think doing this didn't distract from the main point of the story, right? So they had to do those things because they had to give you some sort of setup, but they didn't focus on it so it wouldn't distract. And I love that. And that speaks to the artistry of Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. I mean,
yeah, I think
fantastic writers.
This movie seems like more grown up because as now I'm entering middle age, I look a lot more to my dad and to my grandpa, and even my great grandpa through his histories, his journals, and trying to connect with the same DNA that I came from, and try to tap into whatever strengths they possessed and see if I have them too.
Yeah.
And it really reminds me of this story. You know, is Ben the same kind of guy that Herschel is? Can he tap into that same strength that escaped the Cossacks, that founded a life in America, that paved the way for his own existence?
Yeah.
Is he the same? Does he have that same kind of strength in him? And that's the same question that a lot of people have in the, millennials and Gen Xers. Do they have, you look at yourself and say, do I have what it takes to be the same kind of person that my grandpa or my great grandpa or my dad, that they were? And you got to kind of dig deep and connect with your past, connect with your ancestors to see if that's the case.
Yeah. And it's been pretty cool because we've, my parents are gearing up to move the house that they moved into when I was 18. So, I mean, close to 20 years they've been in this house. And we're cleaning through stuff and everything and going through all these books and journals and stuff like that, stuff from my past. But the same thing when my grandfather died last year. He died in May, I believe. And going through his house and looking at all these artifacts and stuff from their missions that they did for their church, and everything they brought back from Argentina, everything my grandmother brought back from Italy when she fled in the middle of the night from Mussolini, her and her family from Italy, and looking at all those keepsakes and stuff, and then things that wouldn't have any value to anybody else, and then picking them up and seeing the value that they have to me and my family, like just learning all the history and stuff. It's amazing, and then you look at I don't know about you guys. My grandparents were immigrants. My parents were immigrants from Argentina, and then looking at the struggles and stuff that they had to go through when they moved to this country, and learning from those things, and the value of hard work and a work ethic and entrepreneurism and things like that, and the value of school and things like that. These are all things I learned from my parents because they fought,
Yeah, so this movie probably has an even greater meaning to you than it did to me.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I was watching it. Like, I was thinking of how life was like in Argentina for my grandparents. I mean, it was super impoverished area. You know, they lived in Buenos Aires, but it's not like it was today. You know, like it was a very much a socialist state and things like that. And they, you know, my grandmother saved everything. Like she would, I remember she would we'd be going to the store or something like that, and she would try to do something nice and give us a piece of candy, but it was a piece of candy that she had previously sucked on a week ago. Wrapped in a little bit of paper towel, and she'd give us that, and we're like, oh, thanks, Grandma. Like, you know, like she just wouldn't. She's like, I don't want to eat this whole thing now, but I'm not wasteful. I'm not going to throw it away, so I'm going to save it for later, you know, type thing. And,
yeah, maybe the kids will want to taste.
Yeah.
Maybe they can pass it around and they can each have a taste.
And my mom does that now. Like my mom, I'm sitting here drinking my Diet Dr. Pepper. My mom will drink half of one of these cans and then stick a roll of paper towel in the hole like it's going to do something to save the rest, of it for later. And
Ziploc, pour it in a Ziploc bag.
Yeah, these are things that my grandmother did, you know.
Oh yeah, my grandma would take cookies. She'd bake cookies, and then she lived by herself in this little town in eastern Arizona called Duncan.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
And like nobody's in Duncan, and she would never have enough visitors to finish a whole batch of cookies. So when the week had gone by and those cookies were old and stale, she'd just mash them up and pour the crumbs into the next batch of cookies and then bake it.
Wow.
That is awesome. Oh, wow. That is genius. He's like, you know what? I'm running low on flour. Let's mash up some cookies.
Let's rerun these cookies, baby. Let's do it.
Time for the sequel.
Ready for the remix.
That's funny. My grandma did butterscotch chocolate. She did butterscotch chip cookies instead of chocolate chip, but that's not that weird. And they were delicious. That's
did
funny.
What chip cookies?
Butterscotch. Butterscotch instead of chocolate chip. But here is one thing I learned recently about my grandmother, though, that is a funny story while we're telling grandmother stories. So I guess my grandma didn't think that it was a big deal for a kid who's like only 2 weeks old to just eat food.
And you told me this.
So she would feed my mom and all of my uncles and aunts goat's milk and cow's milk, and if they could choke down some crushed peas, then sure. When they're like 2 or 3 weeks old.
Oh my gosh.
I know, which nowadays you're like, no.
You're like, no.
5 to 6 months old before you give them real food. It's formula or breast milk until then, which is funny. Awesome. It's the different mentalities of those eras. I mean, even my mom was the one telling me this, and she was like, I thought my mom was crazy. She kept telling me to do that with you guys, and I wasn't about to do that. They told us, no, breast milk and formula, so that's what we did.
Yeah.
Well, think of how many movies you watch now that are set in like the 50s and 60s, and they're just sitting there chain smoking, full on pregnant. You know?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Things that you just have no idea about. Yeah. But I really, sorry, I had to step away for a second, but I really like what you were saying, Lance, about your family and how they're immigrants. And it reminded me of the part in the movie when he goes back to Herschel's country.
Shrubska.
Is that a made up country, or am I horrible?
Yeah, it's made up.
Okay. Because at first I thought it was Russia, but it kind of just feels like it's a Russia. Stayed up Russia.
I've never heard of the Koskas either.
Cossacks were like Russian, basically barbarians. They're like soldiers. Yeah, that's a real thing. Cossacks are real.
So anyway, I really liked when he went back to that country. When Ben went back, he doesn't speak their language. He doesn't know anybody, and he's just a fish out of water. And this guy, this older Jewish gentleman takes him to the church and just includes him in his life and treats him so kindly. And it reminded me, I think I mentioned on the show before that I lived in Brazil for a couple of years as a missionary. And while it wasn't the same experience as being deported incorrectly to a country that isn't my own, I went to a country that isn't my own, didn't really speak the language very well. And it reminded me of how well the Brazilian people embraced me when I went to their country as this unknown who doesn't know their language. And so that part really resonated with me and just demonstrated to me how I love the United States of America, but some other countries are very much more welcoming than we are. We are not the most welcoming country. Not every country is. Yeah, not every country is.
Yeah,
but it just reminded me.
Hate us, but yeah.
I just mean of just like
you're right.
Strangers. Like the Brazilian people, Hispanic people in general are very welcoming and loving people.
Yes.
When you go, and that's not. We're not mean people in this country, but we're very much more cautious. Like, I don't know you. I'm not going to invite you into my house, kind of a thing,
Well, and it's like that's typical with Hispanic and Latino communities. I mean, that's how when I was a kid, I mean, my family would take the shirt off their back for somebody else. You know what I mean? They're less like that now. I think America has hardened them a little bit, but but when I was a kid, it was like, okay, what can we do for other people? Like, oh, that we would be the kind of family that would stop on the side of the road and help somebody, or like no matter what, or I think that's just a typical Latino Hispanic mentality. Is just help those around you. And I think it has a lot to do with the rooted Catholicism as well. I think that is a big reason for it as well, because Catholicism and Latino heritage is pretty tightly wound together, right?
Sure, and that's what this country was too. The Jewish culture was Jewish religion was very ingrained in their culture. And I really liked that too, because when my wife and I were becoming foster parents, we were trained on the idea that if we get somebody into our, like if we have a foster kid, especially if we ended up adopting them and they come from a different culture, whether it's Native American, Hispanic, African American, whatever it is, but like to help them to embrace that culture, or expose them to it at least, like make sure that they can have.
Oh yeah, you don't want them to forget it
from that culture, because that's important to them. Like that's important to your psychological well-being. And it just was interesting to me because his culture is rooted in Judaism. Now he didn't follow the religion anymore, but his culture definitely goes there. And I loved seeing him re-exposed to that culture and seeing how it impacted him, because clearly he was raised with some of that. Like you could catch that from the story as well as how he reacted. That was probably my favorite moment in the movie, is when he's in that made up country and he's in the
mosque.
Is it a mosque?
No, not a mosque. Temple. Okay.
Mosque is Muslim, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Muslim.
Yeah.
Anyway, when he was in the temple and like he's praying with them, and how he knew the words, but not entirely, and how like it really helped give him a sense of peace, even though he doesn't necessarily believe in it anymore. I just loved that. There were some really deeper things in this movie that I liked, and that was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah. Well, did you guys have anything else to add on this flick?
I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. Let's start with Maxie. Maxie, you want to give it your rating?
Oh man, this is a tough one for me. And I can't put a finger on why. I'm teetering between two scores, and I'm just going to go ahead and land on, and I've literally changed my mind as I'm pausing here. I'm going to go with a 4. I was thinking 3.5, but I think I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5. Really, really enjoyed this movie. Thought it was a really good time. I would definitely rewatch it. It's not perfect. It's got some things that were a little annoying to me, but overall, I thought it was a really good movie.
You going to get Kelsey to watch it?
She watched it with me.
Oh, did she like it?
Yeah, she did. She watched the trailer with me. She's like, it looks interesting, but she's also not into Seth Rogan usually. So She wasn't super excited about the idea, but based on the trailer, she said, you know what, I'll give it a try. So last night I put it on. After about 20 minutes, I paused it, said, you liking this, or should I watch it on my own? She's like, no, it's good. Keep it on. So we finished the whole movie, and yeah, she liked it.
That's good. Sam, what about you? What's your rating, bud?
I'm going to give it 3.5. I really enjoyed it. I could be talked into watching it again. And I thought the themes were really, really good. It's a really wholesome movie, I'd say. and it's a good time. I mean, other than some language, you could watch it with your kids. It's definitely the emotional aspects of it aren't too heavy, so that also lends itself to rewatchability.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a lot to love here. It's kind of like Seth Rogan, which is kind of quirky but charming and a little doughy in the middle. So I thought it was a good movie. Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of floating in that 3.5 to 4 range, but I think I'm gonna have to go with a 4. I loved it. It's not the funniest Seth Rogen movie I've ever seen. I think that still belongs to Pineapple Express, which is one of my favorite movies ever. But I loved it was a different kind of comedy from him specifically, because most of his comedies have this like kind of unique idea and let's put a spin on it, like Pineapple Express and Superbad and stuff. But this one focused much more on the heart and the family of it and stuff, and then trying to make a funny movie around these ideas and everything like that. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I may show it to my oldest. I think she would like it as well, and she would totally understand it and get it. But I'm excited to see. I don't know if Seth Rogen signed like a first look with HBO or Warner Brothers or what, but I'm hoping that more unique stuff like this comes from him on this network.
So let me ask you this, because as you were saying that, Lance, it made me think of a question. Quick yes or no. Would you want to see a sequel to this, Sam?
So there's a good question as to what the sequel would have to deal with. I feel like the movie itself resolved, and I'm not really interested in seeing a direct sequel, but something like a sequel in spirit would be great. I don't know if you guys have seen Support Your Local Sheriff and Support Your Local Gunfighter. They're both James Garner movies from the 60s. And they were not direct sequels, but they had a lot of the same actors, a lot of the same themes. And they were kind of in the same vein, and they had very similar titles, and they were produced by the same studios, obviously. So I would like to see something like that, kind of like, how Cloverfield is starting to become this anthology of very similar sci-fi movies, but very different stories, and they're not necessarily tied together like sequels. I can see, an American Pickle anthology coming together where it's like weird, kind of like, Paul Bunyan and Johnny Appleseed, how those are kind of all tied together as like American Tales of the Old West or the Frontier or whatever. I could see something like that where you're mashing together older ideas with newer culture and trying to extract the diamonds of the past and reset them in the jewelry of today, and see what kind of the valuable tidbits you can extract from the old and put in a modern era. So maybe something like an American, and then whatever food item you want an American Twinkie or an American ice cream cone.
If
Whatever
they do a movie called
Canadian Pickle.
a Canadian bacon or something,
There
if
already is
they
a Canadian Bacon. Great movie.
if they do in a movie called An American Twinkie and Woody Harrelson is not in it, I will throw my TV out the window. That man is forever married to Twinkies in my mind, forever.
But you know what I'm saying? I'm not necessarily interested in seeing a sequel to the Herschel Ben story, but something along those same lines where someone from the past uniting with their counterpart, their identical physical counterpart, but very different cultural counterpart, and trying to mash the two together in a way that they can find harmony. And I think that's a story that will resonate forever. And if they want to do an anthology series of things like that, where it's like an American Pickle story, the story of Jonah from the Old West or Alaskan wilderness or whatever, it could be anything.
Yeah. No, I like that idea because originally when Max asked the question, I'm like, nope, leave it alone. Don't do it. I like your answer, Sam. I do think it would be really funny if HBO wanted to do like a series of like just shorts, like really short, like 3-4 minute things, the Marvel mini movies. You guys remember those, or one shots or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe do one of Ben and Herschel like meeting Barbara Streisand, quick 3-minute thing. Or kind of like they did at the end of the movie, that mid-credit scene. If they want to do some like funny things that aren't really like story driven, just something for us to kind of laugh at, you know what I mean?
It's like an inside joke with the fans.
I think that would be fine. I don't want to
considering Seth Rogen plays both of the main characters, he could probably easily do, so long as he's he knows how to direct the whole himself in the same scene thing. But anyway. I didn't mean to take this deeper. Sorry, Lance. I wasn't trying to.
No, you're good, dude. Don't worry. I thought it was a fantastic question. I mean, I think that's a question we should usually ask ourselves because
that's a fair question.
Sequels out of the weirdest stuff, just weird things that they've greenlit sequels for, and it just doesn't make sense. And yet we're still holding out hope that we're going to get our sequel to Alita Battle Angel. So,
or Mighty Max, the Mighty Max reboot.
Yeah, man.
Please.
Like. I want to see Freakazoid again, man. Like when they announced Animaniacs, I was like, oh, maybe this will open the door for Freakazoid and Pinky and the Brain and stuff.
Pinky and the Brain is coming back too.
It's part of Animaniacs, right?
Yeah, it's going to be.
It's a standalone.
Yeah, I think it's in addition to Animaniacs.
Okay, but I really want Freakazoid because Freakazoid was my favorite of that little trio. Yeah, they're all the Steven Spielberg, Warner Brothers cartoons. They were all from him.
I think it's going to be fun. I just love the idea that if they're coming out with more of this Animaniac stuff, that 30 years from now, my son could be on a podcast talking about the rebooted cartoons and how nostalgic he is for them. And I'm not even trying to make a joke. Like, I think that's a cool idea. Like, here I am talking about how I loved Pinky and the Brain. It's just a cool idea that, like, there could be this new era of that my son will get to experience, which I'll want to show him the old stuff too, but like that he can be nostalgic for and 30 years later be like, oh my gosh, I love that.
Wrong. This is what's going to happen, Max. You're going to fall in a vat of pickles, and 100 years from now, you're going to be showing it to your great grandson.
That would make me so sad.
Please, no one try to jump into a vat of pickles. The Couch Crunchers podcast does not endorse pickle brining.
Well, here I am watching that movie, and I'm like, poor guy. He just found out his wife's pregnant, just moved to this new country. He's all excited about his life, and then he wakes up and his family's dead. Yeah. It's so sad.
Mind you, what happened to his wife the entire time? Like, what did she think? Like, that he ran off?
Yeah.
That wasn't the point of the story.
No, it wasn't. But it's the stuff that you think about when your husband and...
You probably thought the Cossacks got him.
Oh, there you go.
It's interesting. I've been talking a couple times about that show Dead Like Me that I saw and finished. It's on Amazon Prime, and it kind of has a similar idea behind it. There's basically every so often somebody dies, and that person is chosen to be a Reaper, and they take another Reaper's place, right? And they could go years and decades and decades and decades of being a Reaper until they're finally chosen to move on, and then somebody else takes their place. And one of the storylines is the oldest Reaper that's there, who is Inigo Montoya from Princess Bride.
Mandy Patinkin.
Yes, thank you. He is one of the Reapers, and left a letter after he died, left a letter and some money for his wife and daughter, and turns out it never got sent. You know what I mean? And these people just thought he abandoned them, essentially, because his body was never found or something like that. I forget exactly what it is, but that's what was making me think on American Pickle, like, because they spent a lot of time on this show about this story arc, and I was thinking American Pickle. I was like, oh, I wonder what, like, his wife, Herschel's wife, thought, and like what they probably for generations were telling this story how Herschel was this deadbeat that walked out on his family, you know what I mean, and then shows up all of a sudden. Like, all those are just things you think about. They're not important to the story, but yeah, watch Dead Like Me. You guys need to watch that show. It's awesome. But let's talk about a couple of Fabber Flubs real quick. The first of which that's been widely reported, John Wick 5 and John Wick 4 are going to be filmed back to back. Now, Max, I know you put this in here. How much space is going to be between the release of those movies?
That I don't know. To me, the exciting thing was that they've already greenlit 5. That's what made me excited, and the fact that they're doing back-to-back movies. I don't know how quickly they're going to be released, but I mean, because like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were all filmed back-to-back. They were all filmed at the exact same time, but they released, a year apart and things like that. So we don't know, but who knows? I mean, the Matrix movies, the last 2 were released, I think, within like 6 months of each other or something like that. I doubt that they will do that here, but this does open the door for maybe a year apart, which I think could be really cool.
Yeah.
Rather than, when was John Wick 3? Was that last year?
No. Maybe.
I think it was. It was
last year.
It was when you came to visit me because we saw it at the cinema.
Summertime.
Yeah. So anyway, by the time the next one comes out, 2021, that'll be a couple years, and so I think it'd be cool because they're filming back to back. We got 21 and then 22 and whatnot. I just think it's a cool franchise, and I'm excited that they're giving us more. And I also think with back-to-back filming, what I'm hoping we see is that there's a time jump between 3 and 4, because there wasn't a time jump between the other 3 movies. They're all like within a 2-week window of each other or something like that. So I'm hoping we get a time jump, and then 4 and 5 are maybe back-to-back stories.
Well, there's no time jump, right? Because
they happen immediately after.
Yeah, they're all like back-to-back with each other.
No, but 3 ends on a cliffhanger, doesn't it?
It does, but you could still pick up a few years later.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
maybe not a few years, but like 6 months or something. Like,
I think
give John Wick time to heal.
The first three movies all take place within 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it'd be cool for there to be a time jump with the 4th movie, not a long one, like 6 months or something. But
well, I want to know how that.
You're wrong, Max. Wrong.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Okay. I trust the filmmakers. They're going to do a great job. The first 3 were awesome. I'm sure 4 and 5 are going to be
awesome. Yeah, man. If they don't release them a year apart from each other, I don't see the benefit of doing them back to back. So
because Keanu's getting older, dude.
Oh, he said he'll do it until he's in freaking Depends, dude.
Yeah, well, that may not be as fun for us to watch.
Oh, dude, it's Keanu. We're all gonna go watch
Keanu get dropped off buildings,
dude.
While he's in a walker.
He's old now, bro. He can't run. Like,
I know his run is hilarious.
Yeah, he's old now.
Clearly favors one of his legs whenever he's doing it.
Yeah, but which reminds me, Bill and Ted is being released video on demand, dude. I'm so excited. September 1st. September 1st, right?
I think it's back to back, dude. Bill and Ted and Mulan are being released digitally back to back. There's the 3rd is Bill and Ted, September 3rd, and then Mulan is September 4th.
Yeah, I'm skipping Mulan if they're going to charge me $30 on a service that I already pay for.
That you're already paying for.
That.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's not because it's not a rental this time. It's $30 and you keep Mulan as long as you're a Disney Plus subscriber.
I don't know.
See, that's dumb when they're going to release it to me for free in a year. Why would I do that?
Because you're not patient. I'm doing it. I'm just planning on splitting it with somebody.
To me, it doesn't even look that good to begin with, so I've never been excited about that movie. They cut out some of the best storylines, and there's also no singing.
Yeah, but I still am excited for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that there's no Lucha sucks, but I
bet you downloaded TikTok too.
Me? No.
China
well,
lover.
See, now I definitely don't have to go spend $30 on it because I'm just going to log into Max's account.
There'll be a $5 royalty charge.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll remember that.
Lance is gonna be like, okay, let's change that HBO Max password. Let's change that.
No, I've been using
password. Let's change
I've been
that.
using his
Hulu
Hulu
password.
Yeah, he uses my Hulu. We swap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are in the digital streaming co-op.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, which I'm actually calling tomorrow to cancel my cable. We might try a Hulu TV or YouTube TV.
Don't do YouTube TV. It's a ripoff.
YouTube TV is garbage, dude. You don't want that.
I tried it, and then they raised the price $15, and I canceled immediately.
I just need something to watch my sports. That's all I need.
I get it.
That's all I need. So, okay, and then one more thing. Spider-Man is coming to the Avengers game, but it will be exclusive to PlayStation, which Sony owns them.
This stuff. They don't, though. Sony only owns the movie rights. They don't own video game rights.
No, they got the rights from with the Insomniac purchase.
They have the rights to do a video game for that Spider-Man, but they don't have exclusive rights to do any video game Spider-Man they want. They still have to license that out. And so at least that's my understanding.
Well, we also don't know what the new details of the Disney-Sony agreement is.
Yeah, I just think this sucks because I understand Spider-Man, the video game being exclusive. That doesn't bother me. I think that's good and healthy to have some competition between the platforms. What I don't like is when you have a game like Marvel's Avengers or Destiny, for instance, where Destiny had something very similar to this, where there was guns, there were multiplayer maps, there were strikes, which essentially are like dungeons that were exclusive to PlayStation, and you couldn't play them on the other consoles. And the worst part of that for me was the weapons. The fact that these players got to use these very powerful weapons and go do raids with their friends and use these weapons that were better suited to do these activities that an Xbox player didn't get to do. And I just think that sucks when you have a game that's all about this like live service type experience. You know what I mean? I don't like the idea of we both pay $60 for a game and one person gets more content than me because they're playing on a different box.
That just means Sony does do a better job at that. Like Microsoft is not good at getting the exclusives, man.
And I look at that because Microsoft's pro-consumer and Sony is pro-Sony consumer. And so maybe that's a good thing. But I don't like it. I have a PS4 and I have an Xbox. I wasn't that interested in Marvel's Avengers to begin with because I think some of the gameplay looks crappy. So this really turns me off to the game. But I hate this stuff. I think this is gross, and I think it sucks for players. But I think it makes sense for Sony to do. Obviously, it helps them make money.
Happening forever. I mean, Nintendo does it all the time. Where I want to say Fortnite. Certain consoles have different characters from. I think on Nintendo Switch you can get Deadpool, but you can't on the other ones. So they do it all the time. I mean, it's not anything new. I wasn't shocked to see this, but
yeah,
I think if Microsoft was smart, Sony's getting exclusive rights to Spider-Man for this game. Microsoft needs to call up Marvel and be like, okay, what do we got to do to get Deadpool or Daredevil or
get Wolverine exclusively? That'll piss people off.
Yeah, Microsoft just needs to play the game, dude, and they haven't been playing the game for this whole last console generation. They haven't been playing the game.
They're playing a different game. And I like the way they're doing it, but their games aren't as good. That's for darn sure.
Yeah. So, which is the first reason for the first time ever I'm buying the PlayStation 5 before I'm getting the Xbox. I always bought the Xbox before.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that this time. So, but that brings us to the end of our show. Next week, we are going to be talking about the Umbrella Academy season 2, which I think all three of us finished it, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we may have some special guests. Make sure to tune in this Thursday. We'll be doing a premiere of the Paulson interview from Sam at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That one's gonna be a lot of fun. So I got my work cut out to me tomorrow editing that video. We also got a few other videos lined up, and I am actually scheduled potentially this week or next week to do a couple radio programs. Live radio.
Oh, cool.
To endorse Couch Crunchers. I haven't told you guys that yet. This all happened yesterday.
That's awesome. That's cool.
So,
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and then
That's awesome.
we are going to be doing a crossover with a podcast out of Washington called The Con Guys. We're going to be doing a few crossovers with a few other podcasts that I met on Friday. One from Philadelphia, one from Washington, one from Ohio. So the Couch Crunchers brand is going to be blowing up here. So
It's going to be crunching couches nationwide.
Nationwide. All right. But thank you as always for checking us out. Make sure to check us out Monday on the replay on your favorite podcast player. We are having an issue with a couple of the apps with Stitcher and iHeartRadio, to be specific. So if you are a podcast listener on those platforms, we apologize, but we are available on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We have been posting some fantastic memes on the Instagram. They've been getting a lot of love. Max's Drake Volume 1 was pretty good. That made me laugh
I
a bit.
also posted a new movie mechanic for The Old Guard.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good article. I like that.
Yeah, I've been meaning to read that one. Sam did not like that movie.
It's a quick read, man. It's a good movie mechanic article. You should check it out.
It's about 1,000 words. It's not too heavy.
I'm hoping the sequel can change Sam's opinion on the franchise as a whole, if they focus on the storyline that he wanted them to focus on in the beginning.
Just do it Sam's way, okay?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Just do it the way I tell you, and we'll be fine.
He puts the lotion on the skin. All right. So, So check us out on Facebook, Instagram. Check out couchcrunchers.com. And as always, we are live here every Saturday night. Check out our friends at Absolute Geek, Comic Exposure, The Grizzle Geek, the STS guys. We love all those guys, so we want you to check them out as well. And until next time, keep on geeking on.